How we're doing? Radio systems, some of these things that these, I use the term loosely, professionals build leave a lot to be desired. Simulcast, it's like socialism. Looks great on paper, but in real life, it sucks. It don't work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it don't, sometimes it's kind of in the middle. The idea behind simulcast radio is that you can use one repeater frequency pair with multiple repeaters over a large area. So basically, in a nutshell, the way it works, you can have multiple repeaters transmitting at the same time on the same frequency, and everything is supposed to work in unison as one, and you're supposed to have good communications. So you can have somebody on repeater A on the extreme west side of an area, and somebody else on the extreme north, east, south, whatever side, 60 miles away, can be on another repeater, repeater B. They can talk in any other repeaters, anything in the system. You use one, you use them all. Well, when it doesn't work, it sounds like crap. These repeaters at these various sites need to turn on precisely at the same time. If they don't, you get a bunch of garble and distortion. And that is all timed out by GPS. And then at the master site, mama ship, the hub, whatever you want to call it, the master site, that's where your main brain is. That's where all this takes place. If you lose that site, you've lost your system. Saw that a year ago, about 3 months after one of these systems went on the air. And there was no backups, and there still is no backups. So you lose mama ship, you're done. I was actually talking to one of our local firefighters a week or so back. And he said something about it, I said something about it. I said, yeah, sounds like crap, doesn't it? He goes, yeah. Yeah, well, there we go. But it's the greatest invention, I guess. So, like I said, looks good on paper, and if it would work right, yeah, but it doesn't. So you just have a bunch of garble and distortion. So take a listen to this first clip.
Respond to 60 View Street, report of a chimney fire. Has a tone 0347.
That was a fire department getting toned out for a chimney fire. Now, I was only a few miles from the closest transmitter in this system, and that's what it sounds like. On a display, on my signal meter, there's barely a signal there. What's up with that? The next nearest transmitter in this system to me, line of sight, is 9 miles away, I think, maybe 10. That puts a good signal into this area also. And apparently, that wasn't transmitting either. So, judging off the signal, it looks like the two transmitters on this side of the county weren't transmitting. So, that tone, it appears to be, was coming from the next closest transmitter, which is about 35 miles away, line of sight. That's how crappy the signal was. Because if either one of these two transmitters close to me, which both should be turning on and transmitting, but even if one doesn't, as long as one does, there should be a good strong signal coming in, and it wasn't there. So listen to the distortion in that tone. That tone you hear is the B tone. You have two tone, A tone, B tone, to open up a pager. And trying to catch these things, it's difficult, because by the time you hear tones and start getting the camera ready and all that, tones are usually already passed, and now they're making an announcement. But you can hear that B tone, hear that distortion. Now you hear the actual voice of the dispatcher. Hear that garble and distortion? This is a good day for this system, actually. Take a listen to these next couple clips. And the signal meter, now I'm getting a full signal. Yes, I've moved a little bit closer to these repeaters. Not by much, only maybe 4 or 5 miles, something like that, 6 miles. Not enough to make that much of a difference. And now I have full signal. How do we go from having no signal to me barely moving just a few miles? Now I've got full signal. It should have been full signal all along. This system has some issues.
Fire department requesting mutual aid 50 View Street.
Now on this tone pair, I caught both A tone and B tone and the announcement. It's better than the original fire department's tone. It's a little better, but you still got distortion and some garble in there. Yeah, it's awesome. So when this fire call originally started, the location I was at, the closest repeater to me happens to be on the same tower as my ham repeater. How about that? Now, the fire system repeater, I believe, the last I knew, they were running 100 watts. Their antenna is about 70 feet up the tower, and it's facing the direction that I was in. So, it wasn't going through a grounded tower or nothing. Nope, antenna straight to me. My antenna is facing the other way, so it would have to come through the tower to get to where I'm at. Now my repeater, I'm running 50 watts before I go through the duplexer. Out of the duplexer, I'm getting 30. I might be losing a watt or two going up the transmission line, so I'm probably getting 28 watts out of the antenna. My antenna is only 50 feet high, and my repeater puts a great signal into that very area that the fire repeater, there was nothing there. Same tower. More power, higher antenna. Does that add up to you?
Structure fire. Repeating more with a fully involved structure fire. Requesting tanker support. 1523.
With this particular system, this has been the way this has been since day number one. It's been a decade or more. And I guess there's no resolve to it. And this is what public safety has to deal with. Here's some clips I got today of other simulcast systems, and I was within the area that these cover. This wasn't too bad today, but if you listen close, you're going to hear weird stuff. You hear a lot of scratchiness in there, and you would think if you're within the area this should be covering, when I'm only a few miles from one of those repeaters, it should be clear, right? It shouldn't be scratchy. And if you listen to people talking, listen to what the audio sounds like. Yes, it's intelligible, but it sounds weird, right? Like you hear a female on there saying they'll be en route somewhere, and you can hear, and it doesn't seem to be her voice, it seems to be something in the system. It sounds weird. It's like you get these peaks and valleys in people's audio in the system. And those systems there, this was not all the same one you heard in these, whatever, 3 or 4 clips. There was some fire and some law mixed in there. And they all do the same thing. It's hit or miss. Sometimes they're nice and clear, sometimes they're kind of mediocre, other times it's completely unintelligible.
You can show us the road to
2-1. Checking on your status.
Here's some ham radio contacts. Same exact radio band as the public safety, VHF, 2 meters. They're 155, 158 megahertz. They're in that range. We're 10 megahertz below, running 144, 148. Same thing, basically. Same band. No real difference. And running analog. So here's some analog clips. Check out the difference. We can actually communicate without distortion and garble. Hey, old boy. Well, nowhere particular, I don't think. Working on the old bucket truck here in the shop. Need to change out some gas tank straps on it.
Yeah, dropping your fuel tank in the road is considered bad form.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it would be nice in a way if he could have them keys ready, tomorrow, but I doubt that'll happen. Might dream up some great big genius idea that suddenly makes you millions.
Are you trying to say that I'm smart?
can be when you want to be.
Here's an example of two repeaters linked together. This is analog, and they are linked via UHF. Both repeaters are on VHF. So I'm going to toggle back and forth between the two of them. Yeah, there's a little bit of white noise there, a little bit of, hissing type you might hear. Keep in mind, one of these repeaters is a long ways away. I'll stick a tag in here when I plot it out from me. And the other one is about 23 miles away, and it's at a guy's house. It's not way up on a mountain, not way up on a tower, and there's a lot of stuff in between. So, we don't always get the best spots to put ham repeaters. But you know what? It works. And unlike Simulcast, you're not getting distortion and garble here, because even though they're linked, you have two repeaters on two different frequencies. They're not trying to both be on the same one, transmitting the same time.
Hear you in there, and thanks for taking the time to join us, and hope to see you real soon and have a coffee with you. So I haven't heard George in here tonight. I don't know if he's busy or what's going on, but
Here are a few clips of DMR, digital mobile radio. These are a bunch of linked digital repeaters, and all the ones in Maine for the most part operate on VHF. There's 2 or 3, 4, something like that on UHF. There's a bunch over in New Hampshire on UHF. It doesn't really matter, but they are all DMR. And within the network, there are various talk groups. Like every state has a talk group. Then there's regional talk groups, TAC channels, worldwide talk groups, country talk groups. So for example, rattling off a few off the top of my head that's in our area, you've got, first of all, local talk group. The local talk group isolates that one repeater so nothing goes out on the network. It makes it a standalone repeater. Beyond that, you have Maine statewide, New Hampshire statewide, Massachusetts statewide, Connecticut statewide, Rhode Island statewide. I think Vermont's in there now. Got New Brunswick. Yeah. And then we go to some regionals like New England wide. You're going to see a clip of New England wide. I'm talking to a fella in Hudson, New Hampshire. That's 215 miles away from here. Crystal clear. And there's also North America, covers Canada and US. And we got worldwide. We've got TAC channels. I mean, there's all kinds of different talk groups in this network. And it doesn't matter where you are in this network. If you're on a talk group, it's going to be clear. As long as you have a good signal going into it, and you're, as a receiving station, receiving a good signal from it, you're not 100 miles away from a repeater trying to get into it, it's going to work for you. So take a listen to this about how clear this is. Now keep in mind, this is ham radio. This is amateur radio built by amateurs, not professionals. And the amateurs can put a worldwide system together that works this clearly. That's not taxpayer funded. And, a lot of amateur radio repeaters and such are funded right out of people's personal pockets. Sometimes clubs fund them. Sometimes you might get some money out of like a EMA, Emergency Management Agency, out of a county to help support a ham radio repeater, something like that. That's few and far between in some places. A good amount of the time, it's coming out of people's personal pockets. And look at what can be done on ham radio. Here we are, analog standalone. It's clear. I showed you an example of a linked repeater. And you got two repeaters working in unison. I toggled back and forth for you. A little bit of white noise, I explained that. Now we're getting into digital, DMR. Look how clear this is. And then we have professionally built systems in a small area that sound like complete crap and sometimes don't work very well. What's this telling you?
It was nice to have a decent day and have the snow gone.
I'm in Hudson, New Hampshire, just east of Nashua. And, it's been a long time since I've been in the state of Maine.
Yeah. It's you never know what HF is gonna do. So, I was playing around on Upper HF when we had that CME there a couple weeks back, and I was doing pretty good over into Europe.
Yeah, copy that. Well, I'll be going back up in early May and opening things up, and then later in the month, XYL will be coming up, and then we're going to be up there pretty much till sometime after Labor Day.
Trying to catch these systems when they're really, really bad is difficult because it's so hard to predict. You just don't know from 1 minute to the next, one transmission to the next, if it's going to be clear somewhere in the middle, unintelligible, or what. This fire system at the beginning here, earlier today, it was absolutely unintelligible. In closing, yeah, I get the idea behind Simulcast. There's a lot of competition in VHF, especially now, and in some places probably UHF for frequencies. So, if you can take the need for 8, 10, 12, whatever frequency pairs, which now double that probably, because you need to have 2 per repeater, right? So if you need 12 repeaters, you need 24 frequencies. And simulcast that all down to 1 pair, so you have 1 in, 1 out across an area. I get the idea behind that. But the trade-off is, if you get a system and it works like these systems here, you don't know if it's as clear as I'm talking to you now. You don't know if it's going to be kind of somewhere in the middle, or if you're talking back and forth and it's just nothing but absolute mishmash, garbage, unintelligible, and you can't understand what somebody else is trying to tell you. Literally. You're leaning in there going, and it's, you might as well talk to Charlie Brown's teacher. you get more intelligence out of that. So, yeah, do what you want to do, but research it well. And if a radio shop tells you they're going to be able to put a simulcast system on the air and it's going to work and be all this and then some, and then they do, you could be facing this problem too, because here's 5 systems that all do the same thing. I'm not trying to make this video that the hams are better than the professionally designed systems. I'm just trying to show real life examples with audio recordings of how it is here in our world. Maybe you're lucky and you have a simulcast system and it works great and it's always clear. If so, you're doing really well, and that's good. So, I wanted to show some of these simulcast systems, and this is what it sounds like here. I just wish I could catch it when it's really, really bad. And I wanted to show analog standalone repeater. This is what it sounds like from my base in the shop. It's nice and crystal clear to a repeater, whatever, 23 miles away. I made all those notations of distances this morning, talking to my cousin on Almanac and Pass the Dumb Keg. The distances I was from the repeater, such like that, the distance between us, any mileage I ever do with radio is air miles, because that's how radio waves go, straight lines. And, then I showed DMR, and yes, the DMR goes through a network, but still, I just wanted to kind of show, here's what we're doing in the ham world, the amateur world, and we're doing these distances. And we're doing it rather effectively, I would say. And then when you get within a small coverage area, these professional systems suck, honestly. When you're only single-digit miles from a 100-watt repeater, and it's all garble, it's distorted, maybe it's not even transmitting in the system, it's like, okay, but yet then I can be driving up the road and jump into a repeater that's 42 miles away and have a very intelligible conversation with somebody who is beyond that, just showing the real life here. We'll catch you later.